Hi, I'm Christina Trauthwein, VP of Content and Partnerships at Hotel Business, and I am here with Stacy Garcia. She's the CEO and founder of Stacy Garcia Inc.
Yeah.
Welcome.
Thanks for having me here. This is really exciting.
Cool. So let's talk about design trends. I want to talk about what's new for 2023. But before we do that, let's talk about what a trend really is.
Yeah, this is an interesting question. I get this all the time. So in my business, I develop product for manufacturers, and we partner with some of the biggest and best manufacturers in the industry. But there's always that question of developing product that's ahead of the trend without being trendy, because there's risk in that. So I'm always guiding not only the interior designers, but the hotel owners to say there's a big difference between a fad and a trend. And what's critical is to really look at the trends, because trends are something that evolve over time. It's not a revolution, but it's more like an evolution. And you want to make sure that when you're making decisions on what carpets are going to go in, what are your material finishes, what's your furniture, some of these real investment pieces, bathrooms, hard surfaces, these are going to live a long time. And you want to make sure that you're moving in the direction where the trends are headed, so that by the time you're ready to do the ribbon cutting on your property and do the big reveal, that it looks fresh, it looks new, it looks really forward, and it doesn't look like you neglected to what was happening and you were sort of in the past.
So let's talk a little bit about color trends. You mentioned furniture, various textiles, wall coverings. What are some of the trends that you see that are going to be really hot?
It's interesting. I think there is a move in the industry, whether you're sort of a limited service or a full scale, that good design or really great design is expected at this point. The customer is getting more savvy. The expectations are higher. There's more competition. And design is really one of the things that can differentiate your property. It can get the guests to make the decision whether or not they're going to click and book a reservation with you. They're looking, they're seeing. And so one of the things that I think is important is we're sort of saying almost less is more. You want to be choosy about what you're putting into the hotel. So whatever level property you are, really looking at the material story, the quality of the finish. It's funny, my grandmother's famous saying is, what's cheap is expensive. And what she meant by that was, listen, you can buy something that's cheap, but it's not gonna last you a long time. And in this industry, we see it, where there's case goods specified and you're able to open your room at a certain price point, but 6 months later, it's falling apart. The case goods are getting stained. It doesn't wear well. It's not looking good. There's no appearance retention. And so really making good choices about the quality of what you're putting in, the finishes that you're putting in, and having those moments that really inspire the guest, I think make a huge difference in terms of where the trends are moving. So you don't need to have everything. You don't need to have 8 pieces of furniture. You need to have the right pieces.
And I know color is such a simple thing in so many ways, but it is so powerful in creating an atmosphere. So what are some color trends that you see?
So color is a huge differentiator in the market, and it's one of those things that interior designers know about, but ownership doesn't think about too much. And I was just having a conversation recently, sort of with the designer, saying, it is the first thing that a consumer sees. So the consumer is the guest, and this is true across the board. At retail, for any buying decision they're making, color is actually one of the first things that makes you make a buying decision. It's almost a visceral reaction. And it impacts the way we feel in a space. But it can be something that separates your property as well. So I would say it's really important to be ahead of the trends. And one of the things we're seeing right now is a shift from cooler colors, like pure whites and grays, into these more sort of natural, warm tones. And I think some of what's bringing that in is this desire to connect with nature. We're seeing wellness as a huge trend in hospitality, something that the guest is considering, but also something that the employees at the property are looking at. And right now, it's one of the biggest challenges for property owners and management groups is sort of getting personnel, getting the people into the property who can work there. And so really keeping in mind sort of not just front of house, but also back of house, and how we can design spaces that make our workers feel well, make them feel good, and make them want to show up and come to work. So we're seeing, as I said, some of these warmer neutrals, beautiful greens, just like the sofa we're sitting on, really bringing the outdoors in and kind of, that experience of a little bit of nature inside.
And like you said, that speaks a little bit to the wellness trend. But there's certainly so many other things out there that influence trends and trends in design. Politics can influence them, fashion can influence them. So how do you see that all kind of working together?
As a trend forecaster, that's really part of what we do in our studio is number one, we're looking at what's moving trends. We call them drivers, what's driving the trends forward. And as you mentioned, politics is one, the economy is huge. We're seeing also nature and ecology, have an impact on things. And then we see it show up in sort of fashion, high-end fashion, in the arts, and we're watching where these trends are moving because consumers are exposed to them and it makes a difference. It makes that buying decision. So in our studio, looking at trend forecasting is a big piece of what we do. And the reason we do that is in the product development cycle, again, as you know, we're working with manufacturers, creating the collections for a year ahead, 2 years ahead. So we have to be really in front of the trends because it could take us that long to just make the next tile, make the next fabric or carpet collection that then will be shown to the designer, that then will be installed in a project. So it's so important for us to feel that we have our ear to the ground and that we're doing the research on what consumers are responding to.
Okay, let's talk about return on investment, and obviously that's very important to owners. Where do you see design trends supporting that endeavor?
So return on investment and design, I think, go hand in hand. So great design, again, we talked a little bit about the quality of materials. What's cheap is expensive. If you're investing in quality materials, what you're going to get is appearance retention. The product's going to look good over time. It's going to age well. Being ahead of the trends and investing in good design, I believe, does two things. So number one, it makes it so that, as we said, when you open the property, it feels new, but also that it's going to look good, not just from the appearance piece, but from the trend piece. So your colors are going to still look good 5 years from now. It won't look dated. That's really important to a guest. So booking those rooms, 81% of guests are doing their research before they make that purchase. They're going online, they're seeing the photos, they're seeing traveler reviews, and the pictures are worth 1,000 room bookings, So really looking at the details about what's going into the design does help drive the occupancy rates. It does help the ownership really make sure that their hotels are popping up as the top ranked hotels, and the reviews are huge. The other thing design does to get a return on investment, so that was sort of number one. Number two is that the flow of the lobby space, where you're placing F&B, how you're utilizing your public space can also increase revenue. And so design plays a huge role in that as well.
Last question. What's new at Stacy Garcia Inc? What are you working on and what are you most excited about?
Oh boy. All right, that was a sneak question.
I do that sometimes.
I love it. So, we're always working on something new, and my team jokes with me, I'm sort of the chief visionary at our studio, kind of always coming up with the big ideas. Some of the things we have are some exciting new partnerships. So we're working with some new manufacturers. We just launched beautiful wall coverings with Core Seal. We have new product that's coming out with Momentum. So on the wall covering, the textile side, we're really developing product floor to ceiling. And so some of the new things that we're working on actually are full room packages. So we're not yet ready to announce it, but coming soon will be some FF&E sort of turnkey, speaking to some of the trends we talked about, but fully designed room packages, really to help ownership kind of press the easy button on being able to offer just something that looks fresh and new without having to go through that whole design process.
Well, when you're ready to make the announcement, obviously you can come to us.
yes,
All right.
good.
Sounds good. Thank you for your time.
Yeah, thank you so
Thanks,
much.
Stacy.
And it was really nice speaking with you.